So this individual walked into my office, and the moment this individual walked in, my culture went out the door, and I became a revolving door.
Welcome to another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast, where we explore the ins and outs of the seven-figure journey. Today, we have a wonderful guest. This is Tiffany Rosenbaum. She's here with us. She's one of these serial entrepreneurs who has started multiples, has plans to do multiple more, has learned so many great lessons. We're so grateful. Tiffany, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, David. I am so excited because I've heard so many great and fantastic things about you.
And you're calling in out of Gilbert, Arizona, the Phoenix area.
I am.
Well, I envy you. I'm in a cold area right now and thinking of your lovely weather. So
I do like the heat.
Yeah, me too. But so it is. Let's just dive in. I mean, you have learned so many lessons. You have built many companies. Passing the $1 million thing and going to the 10 million is sort of what you do, and you just keep doing it. What are some of the things that have most helped you succeed? And for the sake of the audience, could you just say the industries that your businesses are in, that you've played in?
Mm-hmm. I own multiple property management companies. I own a maintenance / remodeling company. I own a gym, which it makes no sense, but I still do. And I also invest heavily in real estate myself.
Okay.
And then I do it. Yeah.
Now you have a feel for some of Tiffany's expertise. It's in business. But played heavily in this property, physical space kind of arena, mm-hmm. which requires a lot of people, requires a lot of doing, and a lot of change. In fact, managing chaos for others is sort of your specialty.
It is. That's what I call it. It's chaos in its finest.
Yeah, that's what it is. I have properties myself, and I'm aware of how much chaos comes with that. So Tiffany, as you've grown, and you've grown as you've grown past this $1 million mark, and you've doubled, tripled, 10x above that, what are some of the lessons that are real poignant to you that have helped you in your path?
I would say I transformed a 180. Now I speak about my team. My team is the most valuable thing to me. I actually say a business is a living, breathing organism that gives life to many, not just one. So you don't have a business unless you have a team behind you that you're developing and you're giving to them on a daily basis. And so, but I did not always believe that, David. I was the entrepreneur that was like, hey, I can do it best myself. I know I can answer the questions. I wasn't into training. I mean, hiring was a mess. And then I had the worst hires that could have taken me under if I wasn't careful, and realized that I needed to change. And I needed to change.
Okay, we have to talk about this because you're basically talking to a bunch of alcoholics. Well, I mean, we'll say a bunch of entrepreneur alcoholics, mm-hmm. or whatever, mm-hmm. right? Many of us have been there. Many of us have seen it. And the worst thing is the path from, let's say, 300,000 to $1 million or $2 million was to be the superhuman that figured it out. That was the right work to do. That's the hard thing, right? That was our job. And you talk about this transition. I know you said you came to realization. Could you just step us into this? How did you get your mindset to shift from I can solve this problems to
I had to get hit by a ton of bricks?
All right. This is real.
It was like a brick load just coming at my face. And it was like, either you wake up, Tiff, or you're not going to be in business. And I went to an event, and Tony Robbins, and he was talking about how the one thing that gave him all the success was his team, but the hardest thing was his team. Mm-hmm. And then after that event, I called my one of my other mentors, and I asked him, hey, what was the hardest thing for you? And he said, building my team. And I said, okay. I said, well, what was the one thing that gave you all the success? And he goes, building my team. And I'm like, that does not make sense, guys. Can you give me something else? Well, then I went home, and I went to the office Monday morning. I love Monday mornings. It depends on the day. But I walked in, and I was all excited. I was like pep in my step. I was going to get everything done. And all of a sudden, my accountant, that was a CFO level, because he was helping multiple businesses, came up to me. I said, Tiff, I gotta give him my 2-week notice. And I about dropped to the ground. I'm like, 2-week notice? I can't even remotely pay for someone like this guy. And so we started interviewing, and no one looked good because I wasn't advertising for the level that I actually wanted. So number one mistake for me. And then I was like, I walked into my office. I had 2 days left before the 2 weeks. And I said, I just need a butt in the seat. Number two mistake. You don't say that either, because I still have a gaping hole from that. And I walked in, I was like, okay, we're going to look through resumes. And then I call an individual and I say, hey, if I offered you the job, which is not how you do things anyways, but I said, if I offered you a job, when could you start? I can start tomorrow. Number 3 mistake. And then 4th mistake, I hired the individual. And I'm like, just come in. I just need a butt in the seat. It's just accounting. How hard could it be? Because I used to do it, right? So what's in my brain should just be in their brain. So this individual walked into my office. And the moment this individual walked in, my culture went out the door. And I became a revolving door. And when you become a revolving door, go ahead.
Wait. You say culture just went out the door. What began to happen? This person who's just supposed to do accounting, what began to happen that caused so many other team members to start exiting?
She had this power, like she had all the power, but the problem is it wasn't done when I was in the room. So I didn't see it. I had no proof. And so behind closed doors, I found out later that there was all this negativity happening, going on walks with people and saying I was a horrible person, I didn't care about my team, and just destroying the atmosphere. I mean, it was bad. It was bad. And then and then the worst thing that happens when you become a revolving door, and not only that, my P&L started to struggle. And I knew how much money I made. And I was like, something's wrong here. I was like, I know I'm a revolving door, but something else is wrong. And so I started auditing. And then one of my team members called me one morning, and I was getting ready for the day, putting on my makeup like I normally did. And she goes, Tiff, get to the office. And I'm like, either at this point, the building's on fire, or she's quitting, because that's the only thing that was happening in my company at this time. And I went to the office, and she showed me about a stack of papers, and I looked through it, and it was all the proof I needed. And so I called the individual. I fired her on the spot, and that was the best day and the worst day, because guess what? I put myself back into a job because I needed to go into the position, but I also had to hire, so I gave myself a second job. And then I had to also train, and I still had to try to work on the business. So right then and there, I said, I got to change. I have to. I can't continue to do this.
Yeah.
So it hurt.
Yeah. But hindsight now, every one of us have had or currently have a team member that we're thinking to ourselves, ugh, but I can't get rid of them because at least they're filling the role. And if I get rid of them, I have to step in. I have to rehire for the role. I'll have to rehire for the role. I'm going to have all these other jobs. I'm going to be buried. I'll just wait a little longer until I have some free time to make that change. What would you say to those business owners?
So the first question, and I know you're not saying it this way, but like, is it training aspect? Were they trained, or was it really a culture, like it's not a fit, they don't align? And if they don't align, which what you're saying is, then I'd say every day you keep them, they're costing you way more money than you're receiving. Like a bad fit in a culture drains your bank account, drains the morale, drains everything. Like your business is not going to go in the right direction. So I'd say fire today. Hate to say it this way, but suck it up a little bit, get into the seat, hire someone good. And I know that sounds bad, because guess what? I've held on to people so much longer than I should have. Like so much longer.
Well,
And it hurts.
It's because we blame ourselves though too. I was the one that put him in there. We actually give him a chance. Maybe it is just a training issue, and I need to train better, and I'm trying to train. And you start realizing, no, they actually don't even love that work, and they're not great at it. So why are we making them suffer every day?
I love how you put it. Why are we making them suffer? Because they are suffering.
Yeah.
They're not happy either. It's not a win-win.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've said that so many times. Oh, the problem is, if we admit it, then we have to admit we made a mistake. Yeah. And in entrepreneurship, that's so hard to do sometimes. It's not anymore because I'm above that,
Yeah,
because I've made so many mistakes.
that's right.
But when
That
I'm
that that nerve is numb now. That's just what we
It
do.
really is. It's numb. But you have to become numb to it, right?
Yeah.
Because how many times do we make mistakes? And Barbara Cochran says the best, it's not a matter if you're going to fall. It's a matter how fast you get back up. Keep going.
I love
It's,
that. Love
yeah.
that. Okay. So first massive nugget. We'll say you're the third one to state that. You had two others, and now you're saying it. The hardest thing is building the team, and the best thing ever did is building your team. If it's the wrong person, first of all, if there's a spot open, button the seat is the worst answer.
It is. I know.
Right? Just hands down. It's the worst answer. And every one of us is guilty of it. So let's all just own that, right? Okay. And then second, once we realize that, move quickly to right that situation, no matter the cost. Move quickly, because the cost of not doing it is much higher than you ever imagined. Do the calculations later. I mean, I've seen people where their productivity in the whole company literally dropped in half because of the wrong one or two people in there. One or two people can affect 40 individuals. And
See, I
let
should have
everything
had
shine.
you when I was younger, Dave, and I wouldn't have gone through all the pain that I went through. Well, it's true. I mean, it's, sometimes we're just very prideful. And that's what it comes to a little bit.
All right, we got to check our egos at the door. Got it. Give us another great nugget, because that was powerful, and this was a key transition. Quit being the one who thinks they can do everything, and build your team, and build it right. What else
And then
has helped you?
there's a second team. So I went to my mentor and I said, "Hey, what was one of the biggest things that gave you the success?" And he said, "Building my board." And I said, "You gave equity to people?" And he's like, "No." He goes, "I build a board that are experts in where I want to go." And I'm like, okay, talk to me about this. So there's like 5 members, and each business has to decide where they're at and what they can spend. And so, like, before the show, you said, "I'm great at this and this." So you would be a person on the board great at this to help develop a person to a certain point. And then you have tax advisors, you have lawyers, you have businessmen that have gone where you want to go. And so I started setting up my board,
Nice.
the team that will come to me. And in my board meetings, it's not fun and games, guys. You open up the curtain and you say, "Destroy what I'm doing." Meaning, poke holes in everything I'm doing. I had a board member one day come to me and said, "Tiffany, you need to shut that company down." And I'm like, "That's my baby. That's, it was a dagger." And I said, "Okay, take the emotion out of it, Tiff. Where do I need to go with this?" And I said, "Okay, you say you're correct. It's not making the profit a company should. It's making profit, but not what it should." And he said, "Yeah, it's not. You could make profit somewhere else a lot easier." And I said, "Okay, then tell me what needs to happen so we're all on the same page, where we can, if the plan works, then we keep it open. If it doesn't, then we shut it down." So we created this plan. And so my board, I would say, is exponentially important to the growth of the companies, because you get experts in all the fields you need to grow all at once, instead of one person, every other year, that I see happen a lot.
Can I make a few statements that I'm inferring from some things you said, and then I want you to correct them.
Okay.
So a board, you can actually get a board when you first conceive and start a business. You don't have to wait till you have a big business. Is that fair?
Yes, I would say please do that. Don't do what I did.
Okay.
Learn from my mistakes.
So as early as you can. Number 2, if you can do it without equity, it matters. Go ahead and pay the dollars, or give them the experience. So some of them just want to be on your board because of everyone else on the board. They're the right
Happens.
people to be together, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so find the value they want from the board and get them that. Third thing, which was so critical, I just spoke with the business owner who did this wrong, and I had lunch with him, and I told him, he was like, you remember I was building an advisory board, right? And I said, I do remember that. And he's like, so anyway, did you want to hear about that? And I said, I figured you didn't build one because you didn't call me to be on it.
I love that.
Because what he set up was an advisory board of all ex-business owners and CEOs of his type of company.
Ooh.
That's right. He didn't find the experts in their lane. He should have one or two from that space. And then he should have that expert business lawyer who gets the ins and outs if he has a lot of contracting and things going on, if he's going to do acquisitions, whatever. He needs that. Or she needs to have that tax expert that sees the ins and outs of everything and they're planning ahead of time. They need to have that person who understands people, leadership stuff. So you're building the team, because that was a key thing you talked about. They may need to have someone who's just phenomenal at what the sales and market looks like, where that's moving towards, or even who is the rock star of your customers' industry, right? So
100%.
we kind of want the board like this, not a bunch of people that we want to be like later.
Oh, 100%. And also,
Right?
you have to make sure you're not just hiring people that are retired, because they're not in the industry. You want someone that has built a business so big that they know how to get you where you want to go. But what you said was very important. Like, I'm going to be good at one thing, right? But if I only get people that are good at what I am good at, or only in my industry, then they're not seeing everything else that has to happen to grow a business today. Because you're in the ins and outs. You coach so many amazing people. You know, like, business is changing so rapidly.
Yeah.
So rapidly. So yes, I love the board aspect.
I love that you're putting that out there, and so few use it. Everyone you've ever heard of that has gone really big and made some huge exit or some IPO or whatever else, every one of them has a board.
Because they're wanting people to nitpick what they're doing wrong.
That's right.
They've gotten numb to realize I'm not perfect. Tell me where I'm wrong, so I have to report to someone.
And that's the final point I'm going to bring on there. And how you use your board isn't just a social club, isn't just we're talking, we're hanging out, I'm getting a few ideas, I call them on occasion for some advice. I bring my plans, I show them, here's the problem, here's our plans, tell me why it's wrong. Like, beat this thing up, let's see this through, and take it and learn from it, and then run with it. The other piece is they've got some great connections and people they can introduce us to. They're often part of the solution that we didn't know were a resource until we brought our plan. Right?
So true. So true.
So wow. That's it. I just feel like I need to follow Tiffany around. I mean, the value of what you shared in this short amount of time really is the key for success in any industry and what you're doing. Once you pass that $1 million mark, once you've proven you have a product market fit and you really need to grow and scale, these are just gems. So thank you. Tiffany, you can tell me, do you want to keep sharing gems? Because I have a feeling we could just unearth more and more from you. Or do you want to shift and say, hey, let's play with one of my issues and challenges?
Yeah, we can totally do that. I'm an open book. I've made multiple mistakes, and I'm going to continue to make mistakes, because that's just human nature. But take everything for a learning opportunity. But I have a CFO that is external. It's like a third party, and I'm trying to figure out, when do I really need a CFO? I have a controller, but I also don't know. I don't think he is top level controller. So I'm trying to figure out right now, okay, how do I move my accounting department to be top level to handle all my companies? Do I need to bring in a CFO full time? And how do I do it in a way to make sure that I don't tick someone off and lose someone and put me back into a position? And we have a handful full of people in the accounting department right now, but there's one individual that has a lot of knowledge, and they also do my personal books. They also do a lot of other things. So I'm trying to figure out how to navigate that, because my accounting department, it's time to level it up to a certain level, a CFO level. And trying to figure that out, really. I know that was kind of grainy, but that's where I'm going at with my mind.
Okay, let me just dig in a little bit. Your core question is it time to do CFO level? And
In-house,
then
yes.
in-house? Because right now you've got an outsourced CFO, part-time fractional, that's taking
Fractional
care of some
CFO.
of that.
That's exactly what I used.
Um, and then uh, can I promote anyone from within?
I
Is
don't think
that
I
a
can
leap?
do that.
I think that's fair, and I'm actually glad you recognize that.
I can't do that. I've done that way too many. That's another huge mistake I've done in my businesses. I'm like, oh, I'll just promote. Wait, you're not to the level, and that actually hurts that person as much as it hurts the
That's
company.
right, and it can be very valuable, and to have somebody mentor and teach them and raise them up to a level. But it's also a different discipline. We
Yes.
think accounting department, we're like, oh well, there's I've got my bookkeepers, and then I've got my accountants, and I've got a controller, and then a CFO, right? And they just kind of grow up through this. No, they don't actually. The CFO comes from a different vein.
It does.
They just are, right? The controller on down see the world in a rear view mirror. Nothing personal against, but numbers are numbers. Only what's happened is real. This is what I write, what I think about. Well, a CFO has a job to look to the future, to plan, to think, to model, right? And to build relationships, to be able to secure funding, better loan terms, all that sort of stuff, right? And they have to be a leader for the rest of the accounting department. So we're asking them to do two kind of different jobs in the middle of that. So you're thinking at this point, I need this CFO. So I don't want to reveal things. Maybe you don't want to share yet, but do you have funding issues that you need to make sure you're taking care of because of planned purchases, acquisitions, or
No.
stuff like that?
Right now, no, but I am purchasing 2 different companies this year. I don't think there will be a funding issue because both actually are looking at seller carrybacks. But if they didn't, I don't know if I want to put all that cash out either. So, I mean,
Okay.
I could go get an SBA or something like that if I needed to.
Okay. So when I'm thinking of businesses and I think I need to secure funding and relationships for funding for what I'm doing growth
Okay.
wise, that's when I want to lean into a true CFO, not just a controller that's great at leading people and giving me great reports. So that's one of the areas it's like I need a real CFO to think through that. The other side is if I don't have internally the auditing capabilities, someone who can see and understand where a business is really working. Sometimes my CFO gets that. So in the acquisition stage, they're part of my due diligence process, right? And it
Yeah.
saves me a bunch of time. So anyway, I would first stop and say, what kind of CFO do I really need for what sort of work do I care about, right? And just make sure they've got those kind of experiences. So your question was, do I, yes or no? And then how do I? And how do I manage potential hurt feelings or I wish I had this opportunity or that type of thing? Is that
And I
fair?
don't know if it will be a hurt or I wish I had that opportunity. I don't think truly, one, he is at the level remotely to needing to be that. Two, I think it's more of you're hiring someone over me. Because a lot of times people get, wait, I've been here. Why don't I, you
Okay.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the CFO type that I want is more of I'm buying businesses and I want someone to do the work, the due diligence behind it. And yes, I'd look over it, but I want them to do the first steps. And so it doesn't take all my time in the deal factor. But is there a certain amount of revenue that's coming in that justifies a CFO?
I, I tend, again, if you need money in cash, it's very early,
Yeah,
right?
I don't need,
You
yeah.
don't need. So you're just saying within my companies,
Uh-huh.
because you're talking about a enterprise level position that is going
Yeah.
to oversee all of these and do this work. Within my companies, when is revenue actually worthwhile on it? I normally recommend people, this is kind of a backdoor way. So
Okay.
sorry. I normally recommend people use a fractional CFO when they're between 5 and 20 million. Afford to bring a full-time CFO on, usually with your margins. You may have a larger company that does greater revenues, but your margins are so tiny. You have to look at the value return for having. Most value can be gotten from your controller and that accounting team. Those are your reports, dashboards, all that kind of stuff, very important. But a CFO has the job, yes, to make sure that's right, but also to look at things like, oh, what are our banking relationships? How do I renegotiate terms, right? Where should we invest our rainy day fund and how to manage that in the smartest way, right? How do I use my money to make us money and keep liquidity high? Am I doing a 13-week cash flow projections and seeing where the money is and using all the extra to get the most out of it we can, or taking it back to the leadership team and saying, if we had this cash, where could we put it to really move this company forward, right? I should be seeing insight. So a CFO has a job to see in the business model, money put here gives the most output. So we have more fuel to do more work, and to be sharing that. So they should not just provide a dashboard, but understand how the mechanisms work and give us that kind of advice. You can get that value. They can be great, but most fractional CFOs actually don't do that. They're actually controllers in the way they do the work for you. Maybe not out of competency, but out of their own business model. Because their business model is, how do I do as little as possible, given the retainer I have going? How many retainers could I get? Yeah. And the person I'm serving could only use so much information today. I'll just keep providing that. That makes sense?
No, it's true. It makes complete sense. So how do you find a really good fractional CFO? How would you recommend finding one?
I would always look at them as though they were a full-blown team member in your hiring process. So I would walk through, and first thing I would do is I would identify cultural value fit, because I don't want finance language moving us against core values and principles that we care about. Okay, so I need a full alignment on there where we're like, we love this person. They're in the team. We get them. It's not always a rub, and we just have to put up with them. Okay. So do a full hire as though they were internal. Then on the other side, I would never post a job or search for a CFO without clear metrics of, you have to deliver A, B, and C. And by this time for this quarter or this month, here's your metric. And then the next month I would give them a new metric, because a CFO isn't a set it and forget it role. Mm-hmm. It's not like, okay, well, I just have the books. I just close the books every month. That's not the CFO's job. It's business insight. It's certain relationships. It's clarity down in even some dashboards, some things that this team didn't understand how this team really worked. Let's align this with these metrics. Let's start really measuring it. Like a good CFO should help the controller and team know, hey, here's the data that has to be fed back quickly, not to the top. I need this to go to this person in this role and this person in this role, because then they make faster, better decisions. And those are key ones to leverage us. Not for every position at first. Let's take the winners and move those. Then we'll add more and more. But you should have a metric of success. Here's your top 1, 2, or 3 things that have to be done this month or this quarter. Now I'm going to hire people who can do that and pull it off for me. And then the next quarter, I have new metrics.
100% quarterly rocks and everything.
That's right. If you're going to go with EOS methodology, quarterly rocks around their role, that's what I want. They have, except these are just your operation, your KPIs for your role. We call them your big threes. I need to have that. So now I've got cultural fit and the role fit. And the role fit isn't forever. It's every quarter or every month, depending on how fast the cycle is. We agree, you're focused, you're going. Because their business model, again, was how, it's consulting.
Yeah.
Consulting is, how do I help them move forward enough that they keep paying my retainer? But not any more than that, because I maximize my returns by having more and more people that I can do less and less for and still get paid for.
So, okay. Yeah.
Right. So one of the metrics will be, great, you get that in place. And then the next 2 weeks, now that has to be automated. So you never have to touch it again. You're working on the next thing. I don't give you credit for the same report that's on auto.
No.
Okay. So just think about that. I know you're laughing.
No, I like
It's
it.
just what I've seen so many times for other people. You're like, yeah, that's crazy.
Because to be honest, I would say, just talking to you, that the fractional CFO I have is probably a very high controller. Then, just speak honest. I mean,
Yeah,
like I told you,
they're a
I'll tell
good
you all the
controller.
things
That's right.
that I make. I'm not afraid of them anymore. But so that tells me how I need to go back and discuss this a little bit further and go, hey, even talking to her, that she needs to have different metrics every quarter and making sure that we're hitting certain things. Now, the CFO, can one of their KPIs be like the net profit or the profit margins or things like that? Because they should be looking at what are things that we can get rid of, what are things that we can implement to make us more profitable or to make more money, to generate more money.
I mean, that's a great question. Um, the people who are in charge of my profit margins are actually my salespeople
Mm-hmm.
and my operations team. And,
That's how
and
we
so
have
I want them to own it. Um, there's a strategic question of who's the dog, who's the tail.
it.
Don't let the tail wag the dog. The, the CFO can't be seen as the person that generates value in the business, that delivers on customer expectations, because they don't. They do have the job to be the tail and to help everyone else do their job well. So you'll want to be careful on where you add and say you're responsible for, and then therefore the power to act in that role, where most businesses, as they mature and they get to these larger corporations and they do well, and they hand off from founder to the new CEO or a new CEO after that, and eventually they promote a CFO to be CEO. And stock prices go up really fast as the business is normally rated, right? The
Yep.
essence is taken right out of it
Mm-hmm.
to maximize a profit. And then we start falling apart, but it all looked good for a while. Bonuses are received and they move on.
Mm-hmm.
It's a common thing. So CFOs have a job to support everybody else. And so you may want to think about what that metric is and
Okay,
where.
it sounds like I got a lot of homework to do. I like
Anyway,
it.
just some thoughts. So we'll leave that alone for now. Tiff, I can't tell you how much I enjoyed having you on the show today. I mean, your insights, your openness, your learning. I mean, you're just doing so many great things. You're at where many of our listeners want to be today. Thank you for taking the time to be here.
No, thank you for being willing to help me. That's where we're all at, right? We're all learning and growing. No matter where we're at, we're almost a baby in the next phase we're trying to get to. And so we got to
Yeah.
be willing to be open and honest and be vulnerable a little bit with our mistakes.
Isn't that what it's like? It's like we didn't learn to walk by sitting until we figured it out.
100%.
Right? Well, Tiff, how do people get in touch with you if they want to stay in touch, learn from you, or buy from you in the future?
The best way is probably Instagram, my social media. All my social medias are Tiffany M. Rosenbaum. And then that's probably the best way to reach out to me.
Fantastic. Thank you again. And that wraps up this episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. We hope as a listener you found the value. I certainly did. If you did, like, share, get it to other business owners so they too can benefit from the things that Tiffany shared with us today. Until next time, just keep striving, learning, growing, and caring.